Tissot PRX Quartz versus Automatic. Which one is better for you? We're talking about all the similarities and all the differences between the two different watch collections. Well, basically PRX is one watch collection, but we're talking about the analog Quartz mostly versus the Automatic Powermatic 80. The PRX was introduced in 1978 by Tissot. The P stands for precise, the R stands for robust, and the X stands for the Roman numeral 10, which stands for 10 atmospheres of water depth. That equates to 100 meters or 330 feet. So basically the PRX stands for precise and robust up to 100 meters or 330 feet. The quartz versions of the PRX are available in 35mm size and in 40mm size. Here you can see there's a quite big difference. Most men prefer the 40mm and the 35mm is seen as a woman's ladies watch, but of course depending on your preferences and the size of your wrist, as a man maybe you prefer the smaller version, or as a woman you might prefer the bigger version. Tissot offers the PRX as an automatic version in 35mm, 40mm and 42mm. The 35mm and 40mm are called Powermatic 80. The chronograph version, the 42mm version, is not called Powermatic 80 because it does not have an 80-hour power reserve. It only has 60 hours. That's why it's not called Powermatic 80, just in case you were wondering. The Tissot PRX is also available in gold PVD coating. PVD stands for physical vapor deposition, which means that gold vapor was deposited on the stainless steel case and wristband of those watches. So there's a very, very, very thin layer of yellow gold on those watches. But as you can see, you even have the digital version with the PVD option, the quartz version, and the Automatic Powermatic 80 version of this watch as PVD gold coated watch. In this comparison, we will talk about the price, the movement, and the design differences. I think those are the three main decision points, but maybe you can leave a comment below and tell me what is most significant for you. Is it the price? Is it the movement differences? Or is it the design differences? Before I start the comparison, I want to ask you, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe you like to subscribe to my channel, or maybe you like to use my shopping links below in the video description. I will add shopping links for the Tissot PRX, mostly from Amazon. If you use those links, you don't have any downside, but I get a small commission and can make more videos like this. Let's talk about the price first. I think for many people it's an important part of the buying decision. As you can see here, the quartz on the left is around $400 US. By the way, the price is from April 2024. The prices of course might change, and I rounded the price, so maybe it's 375 or 425, but overall it's around 400. And also if you're in a different country, the prices might vary significantly. So basically you can get the Tissot PRX for around $400, whereas the automatic Tissot PRX Powermatic costs around $700 US. So as you can see, there's a quite big difference. Depending on your budget and how much you want to spend on one watch, you can already maybe decide which version you want. If you prefer the yellow gold PVD version, then you have to pay around $100 US more. So compared to $400 before, you pay $500 for the quartz and around $800 for the automatic version. But of course, there are also more expensive versions of the PRX, both automatic. The chronograph, which looks completely different than the normal PRX, costs around $1,900 US. And if you want an 18K gold bezel on your watch, then you have to pay also around $1,900 up to $2,000 US, depending also on the size of the watch. So the 35mm is probably $1,900 and the 40mm is $2,000. But of course, if you have the 35mm also with diamond index, then it's also around $2,000. Maybe you only watch this video because you want a comparison between the battery-powered quartz crystal movement versus the mechanical watch spring movement. Here you can see the battery used in the Tissot PRX Quartz watch, the analog version, and on the right you can see the watch spring which stores the power for the automatic version. So what are the differences? The Tissot PRX Quartz watches use a quartz EOL movement. The EOL stands for end of life indicator, which means as the battery runs low, the second indicator will only jump every 4 seconds, not every second. So you get a hint that something's wrong and you should get a new battery. And the PRX Powermatic 80 has the Powermatic 80 movement with Nivachrome balance spring. Nivachrome is significant because it's not susceptible to electromagnetic forces. So even if you handle some magnets or go through airport checks, the watch will keep a perfect time. One big difference is that a quartz watch ticks every second and the PRX Powermatic 80 is ticking 6 times per second. With a quartz watch, it's a classic 1 tick per second, but as you might know, many automatic watches, they tick more often. So actually it's more of a continuous movement and you don't have the tick, tick, tick sounds. Talking about the accuracy, of course, the PRX Quartz watch is much more accurate with -0.3 and +0.5 seconds per day accuracy. So it's just losing 0.3 seconds or gaining 0.5 seconds per day, whereas the Powermatic 80 is classified with -5 and +5 seconds per day accuracy. By the way, with automatic watches, it's normal that as you wear them, usually they go a little bit slow, and if you put them down for the night with face up, then usually they go a little bit faster. So in theory, it can equal out. Talking about the power reserve, of course, the quartz watch has a battery which should last at least 5 years. And the PRX Powermatic 80 has an incredible 80-hour power reserve. For automatic watches, this is quite good. And the chronograph has 60 hours power reserve. What happens after the 80 hours? It might stop, but then you just have to wind the watch, set the time, and you can continue without any problem. I'm not sure if it's clear, but of course the Powermatic 80 is an automatic self-winding watch. So you can wind the watch, but it uses the movements of your wrist to self-wind. So you don't have to wind your watch regularly. If you wear the watch, then it's no problem. And although it does not need any battery replacement, it needs some maintenance service every 3 to 5 years. Because it's a mechanical system, it needs some maintenance, some oil and so on. And maybe also interesting, the lifetime. According to my research, quartz watches have a lifetime of about 20 to 30 years. Maybe I should say quartz movements, because there the electric parts wear out and maybe have to be replaced, or maybe you have to replace the complete movement. According to my research, you can calculate with 20 to 30 years, depending on how well you treat your watch. And of course, an automatic watch can have a lifetime of over 100 years. So you can give it to your children or your grandchildren. If you do the regular maintenance, it should have no problem working in the future. And of course, you don't need any electricity, or you don't need any batteries. You just have to wind it and it will continue to work. Before I get to the design, I want to talk about the scratch-resistant sapphire crystal. According to the product information on the Tissot website, all the Tissot PRX Quartz watches have a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal, and all the automatic Powermatic 80 PRX watches have a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating. So I did not find a good picture to visualize this, but I just wanted to mention this. Maybe it's significant for you. So let's talk about the design. Of course, seeing the difference between the digital quartz Tissot PRX and the automatic Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 is very easy. Here you see a bigger picture. Maybe you did not know that Tissot PRX even has a digital version. The Tissot PRX digital version is a quite recent addition, and of course everyone can see the difference. But if you want an analog watch, then it's much more difficult to spot the difference between the Quartz and the automatic version. Most comparisons just show the Tissot PRX in the blue version with stainless steel strap. I thought I show some different versions of the Tissot PRX just so you have more ideas what kind of Tissot PRX design options are out there. So here we have the Quartz Analog version on the left and the Automatic Powermatic 80 on the right. And as you can see, both dials are black, but the dials are quite distinct from one another. On the left one, the Quartz has just a brushed background, which looks quite stunning, of course. But on the right, you have this waffle pattern. It's more three-dimensional. This is quite distinct for all the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 watches. You don't have these patterns with a simple Tissot PRX Quartz versions. So this is one distinguishing feature. By the way, here we have black rubber straps. Tissot offers a quick release strap system for the PRX, so you can quickly switch between different wristbands and straps for your Tissot PRX. Then let's compare the blue one. Most comparisons have this blue one. The blue dial is a blue sunburst pattern, and on the right the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 has also this square waffle pattern. And of course at the 6 o'clock position you have the PRX logo on both sides, but in addition on the automatic Tissot you also have the Powermatic 80. So the Quartz version looks a little bit more minimalistic, and the automatic one has the Powermatic 80 writing, which some people might think is too much maybe, but this is one distinguishing feature between Quartz and automatic watches of the Tissot PRX collection. Maybe you already spotted it. So on the left again, the Quartz version, and the date field is much more simple. And on the right, the automatic one, it looks much more three-dimensional and more elaborate compared to the simple Tissot PRX Quartz version. And of course, also the color of the green is a little bit different. The color differences are actually much more pronounced in the 35mm versions of the PRX. So here we have the PRX 35mm Quartz version in light blue on the left, and the PRX 35mm Automatic Powermatic 80 in ice blue on the right. The ice blue is a quite new addition too, and you can see, well, the blue is quite different, and also on the right you have the square pattern. But what I want to show here is that the date field cuts off the 3 o'clock index hour marker. I wanted to show this. It's quite distinct compared to the 40mm one, where the 3 o'clock hour marker is not cut off. But here in the smaller version, 35mm, it's a quite big difference between the two watches, the Quartz and the automatic. Both the Quartz and the automatic watches have luminous hands and luminous index hour markers, but I could not find a good picture for the PRX, so I just show you a different picture from Tissot showing the luminous effect. But of course, with the Tissot PRX, the effect is not quite as strong as in this picture. But there's one version where the whole dial is luminous, but I'm going to show this a little bit later in my comparison. If you compare the case back of the Quartz versus the automatic watches, it's super easy to spot. The Quartz have a solid stainless steel case back, and the automatic versions have a see-through case back where you can see the movement. Here I have a short explanation where you can see the lower part of the movement is kind of solid. This is the semicircular oscillating weight or hammer rotor, which winds the main spring. And if you move the watch a little bit, you will see this part actually moves, and it uses the movement of the watch or the wrist to wind the spring as you wear the watch. That's why it's self-winding. And as mentioned before, if the spring is fully wound, the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 has an 80-hour power reserve, which is quite extraordinary for an automatic watch. Then comparing the thickness of the different watches. So actually in the 35mm version of the Tissot PRX, there's a big difference between the Quartz and the automatic version. So we have a thickness of 9.6 millimeters for the Quartz and 10.9 millimeters for the automatic version. The automatic mechanical movement with all the cogwheels needs a little bit more space, so it's a quite noticeable difference. But the difference for the 40mm versions of the Tissot PRX Quartz and Automatic are not as big. So the Quartz has 10.4mm and the Automatic has 10.9mm thickness. So actually here also on the picture you cannot really see the difference. And actually I got the pictures from Tissot themselves and I thought maybe someone was lazy and they just put the same picture. But then I also got the pictures for the rose gold fluted version and the yellow gold fluted version, and as you can see they look identical to the stainless steel version of the Powermatic 80. They're not much thicker compared to the quartz version. So I would think you will not notice any difference. And also weight wise, I mean, not talking about the gold, but the stainless steel version, weight wise, I think there's not such a big difference that you would notice on your wrist. I forgot to mention all Tissot PRX have the 316L stainless steel case, so it's very corrosion resistant and very long lasting. I just wanted to mention, as I shown before, Tissot PRX has an interchangeable quick release bracelet, so you can change between brushed stainless steel, rubber or leather quite fast. So depending on your preferences, you can choose one. I think the rubber and the leather are a little bit cheaper compared to the stainless steel bracelet versions, but I just wanted to mention the option that you don't have to use the Tissot PRX just with a stainless steel bracelet, but you can get a rubber strap or a leather strap depending on your design preferences. I wanted to mention the full luminescent dial version is only available for the PRX 40mm Quartz version. Here on the left you see the white Tissot PRX with white dial and white rubber strap, and in the middle you see how it looks like in the dark. So the whole dial is luminescent, but there is no equivalent for the PRX for the automatic version. Here on the right I just showed the PRX 35mm automatic with white mother of pearl dial with a distinct square pattern, but there is no full luminescent version as far as I know. But as mentioned before, the Tissot PRX Quartz watches are only available with a maximum size of 40mm, whereas the PRX automatic versions are also available in 42mm as the chronograph version. There are other chronograph models from Tissot which also use quartz movements, so who knows, maybe at some point the PRX will also be available as a quartz chronograph. Chronograph basically means stopwatch, that's why you have the two extra buttons similar to a stopwatch. As mentioned before, Tissot PRX also offers watches with 18K gold bezel, and those versions are only available for the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. Here, for example, for the ladies, we have the 35mm versions here on the left with 18K yellow gold fluted bezel, and on the right with 18K rose gold fluted bezel with diamond index hour markers. If you want to spend a little bit more on your watch, then this might be an interesting option. But of course, also for men, there are some options with rose gold bezels. So on the left, there's a smooth bezel. In the middle, the black dial and fluted bezel. And on the right, the silver dial and fluted bezel. And as you can see, the black and the silver have brushed sunburst pattern dial. This is not the square or waffle pattern as with the other ones, but of course this is only available because they have the rose gold fluted bezel. And I thought I add the pictures on the wrist here just so you can see how it would look on the wrist. So it's not too shiny, but looks quite elegant. There's also one yellow gold fluted bezel version for the 40mm Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. Personally, I think it looks almost better than the rose gold, but depending on your taste, maybe you prefer the rose gold and not the yellow gold. We are at the end of the comparison. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, maybe consider subscribing and consider using my shopping links below in the video description. I would appreciate if you use my links because I get a small commission, but you don't have any downside if you use my links to go to the shop and buy your Tissot watch. I hope you enjoyed this comparison. I think it's quite different from many hands-on comparisons, but I hope this helped you to decide which Tissot PRX you want to buy, the Quartz version or the Automatic Powermatic AT.